Hey, do you guys remember when I was 16? No? Oh, thank God.
Why have so many edgy retellings of Alice in Wonderland been popping up?
Okay. So when I was 16, I made this video about Alice in Wonderland themed horror games. It was terrible, so it's not available anymore. But in this awful video I made in high school, one of the games I talked about was called American McGee's Alice. And I raved about it for a little bit, because I was an edgy teen with a love for all things Wonderland. But here's the problem. I only talked about the demo.
I haven't yet had a chance to play through the full game yet, but I really hope to do so soon.
What the fuck, me? Why are you being dishonest? We both know you didn't play the full game because you couldn't find an affordable copy, and at the time you still had a moral compass that wouldn't allow you to pirate things. Did I say pirate? Sorry, I mean, purchase things from EA, like I did with my own money. Well, now I'm an adult, and I still make terrible YouTube videos. And this game, American McGee's Alice, started nagging at me again, because I got the sequel on Steam for like $5 and I didn't want to play it without experiencing the original first. So I acquired a copy, and I beat it within a couple weeks. And now I have thoughts. So basically, in the late 90s, there was this guy named American McGee. Which, did anyone else think that was a pseudonym? I only recently found out that American is like his real legal name. Anyway, this guy, American McGee, had just left id Software, which did Quake and Doom, and he wanted to do something different. Something unique, twisted, and fantastical. He had this idea for a dark adaptation of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. But there was some trouble in settling on the narrative. McGee and EA went through a couple of ideas before agreeing on a final story. And what they came up with was actually a pretty fascinating take on trauma, dissociation, and, madness. And I had to sit on it for a while because while the basic story and themes are quite accessible, with a cast as large as Wonderland's, naturally, McGee included a lot of details and nuances. So, I've been obsessing over this game, and its sequel, but that's for another time, trying to put all the weird, trippy pieces together. And I think I've got something close to a full picture. So, let's explore American McGee's Alice.
Wake up, Dormy. It's time for the tea party. Hush, be treacle.
I've got one. Why is a raven like a writing desk? Oh dear, oh dear.
You must save Alice.
Wake up, Alice, wake up!
Mom? Dad? Alice? Mom! Father?
I can't see!
Get out, Alice!
Save yourself, Alice! Get out of the house!
Alice, now an adult, is kept in an asylum, catatonic after her parents tragically died in a fire. After many years, a nurse brings Alice her childhood stuffed rabbit. The rabbit then comes to life, giving a very good voice performance.
Save us, Alice!
And Alice falls into Wonderland, where the White Rabbit tells her that they are...
Very late indeed.
As Rabbit runs off, Alice is greeted by the Cheshire Cat, who, with his silvery, silky voice, will basically be your guide.
Wonderland's become quite strange. How is one to find her way?
As knowing where you're going is preferable to being lost, ask. Rabbit knows a thing or two, and I myself don't need a weather vane to tell which way the wind blows.
And now, for pretty much the rest of the game, Alice has to traverse through this new Wonderland, overrun by the Red Queen's influence after her absence. And apparently, the White Rabbit's been telling everyone about Alice, hyping her up as Wonderland's savior. Because Wonderland, if you couldn't tell, is falling to shambles.
Our land is destroyed. Our spirit crushed.
Reminds me of the asylum. Is there no joy here?
Slavery and happiness do not dwell in the same house.
Oh.
Speaking of Rabbit, the first order of business is to catch up with him. And for some reason, you need this goofy little gnome dude to help you get small so you can go through his rabbit hole.
Use the key to free my clan from the oppressive burden they carry. Any fight against the Queen's tyranny is a good fight. They've suffered...
I'm sure I'm very sorry for them, sir. Really I am. But what about me getting small?
Alice, you asshole! So, to make some small juice, you visit this trippy schoolhouse and decapitate some card guards. Also, there's crazy children walking around.
I'm gonna try not to harp on this a lot because there's a lot to talk about, but dude, the style and atmosphere of this game is so good.
Especially this section, because it really just epitomizes what you're about to be in for, which is chaos, confusion, and a really nice soundtrack. And, okay, I know this is super small, but like, I love going through doors in this game because they just open when you get near them, and it reminds me of the Alice in Wonderland dark ride at Disneyland. And just like that ride, I find this game quite lovely and whimsical, and also pretty creepy. But anyway, tangent over. Alice mixes up the potion of smallness and jumps through this portal. And now we are in the Pool of Tears, a cute little reference to the bit in the novel when small Alice has to swim through her own big Alice tears, represented here by a giant crying Alice statue. And... that really translates well to this story. 'Cause think about it, it's like Alice is drowning in her own misery, and I think you'll come to see that's kind of the whole point of the game. 10 points for McGee. This area is also where we meet the mock turtle.
What's all this then? Did someone die? Have you lost your family?
No, my shell! The Duchess stole it and tried to eat me for lunch. Nobility must be served, I suppose.
Stop that railing, won't you?
You're very cold-blooded for a mammal. I was almost soup.
Tragic, I'm sure, but I'm a bit pressed for time. Have you seen a rabbit?
Caterpillar could help, I'm quite certain. He knows everything there is to know.
And where does that smushy layabout hang his hooker these days?
Since the troubles began, he's in hiding. I couldn't divulge the secret. I couldn't risk telling you without something in return.
Turtle offers to help you find Caterpillar as long as you bring back his shell from the Duchess, who is hiding out because the Queen of Hearts wants her dead. And apparently there's some crazy shit going on in her house.
Come closer, my little chick. Properly seasoned, you'd make a handsome dish.
So, the Duchess is now a cannibal, and she wants to eat you. Why? I have no idea. But she's our first boss fight, and she shoots dangerous pepper at you until you defeat her, and she sneezes her fucking head into pieces. This game is awesome. And just like that, the mock turtle is reunited with his shell, and in thanks he points you in the direction of Caterpillar. Which, I'm not gonna lie, this level is kind of my least favorite part of the game. I just find it kind of boring. Like, yeah, there's sentient plants and bugs trying to drop acorn bombs on you, but it doesn't really have that same vibrant, bizarre flair as all the other levels. Actually, I wonder why McGee didn't include the weird bastardized insects from Through the Looking Glass. I don't know, maybe they just couldn't find a way to make butterflies with bread for wings all that threatening. I like these mushroom guys though. They're silly.
Now this is around the time that the plot kind of starts plotting. I would definitely recommend, if you can get your hands on this game, to play it for yourself. But if you haven't experienced it, then this is your last chance to get off this train before it reaches spoiler cloud.
Fortunately, this is where we catch up with Rabbit, who's headed toward Caterpillar anyway.
Caterpillar is just beyond the clearing, Alice. Let's sacrifice stealth for speed.
This shit caught me so off guard the first time I played this game. Like, it's so cartoony and disturbing at the same time. It's very fitting for the White Rabbit, though, being killed because he was in too much of a hurry to try and be stealthy. And you might be wondering, who the hell was that?
Well, that was the Hatter. And don't worry, we'll be seeing him again soon. I don't know why he's here, though.
Everyone I love dies violently. Unnaturally. I'm cursed. Why go on? I'll just hurt others.
No time for self-pity. Evade these savage soldiers and find Caterpillar.
Damn, the Cheshire Cat really just said get over it.
So, like, it's pretty clear by now that Wonderland is Alice's, like, internal world, right? Okay, good. With that in mind, I think this characterization of the Cheshire Cat is really interesting.
Like, his purpose is literally to guide Alice and help her survive. The Cheshire Cat has always been a paradoxical voice of reason in the many renditions of Wonderland, and, well, yeah, he kind of comes off as a dick here. Isn't he kind of right? With every moment that Alice spends succumbing to these overwhelming emotions, the Red Queen's influence grows stronger. And somewhere, Alice must understand this too. So we may be able to say that the Cheshire Cat is perhaps a more rational part of Alice. He understands the madness enough to help her control it. And he has great chemistry with her too.
You call that a tap? Fortunate I didn't suggest force. You might have pulverized it.
Yeah, once again we have that mentally ill girl and her cat dynamic. Love to see it. Anyway, once Alice pulls herself together, it's on to the Oh my. Caterpillar explains that Alice has been sucked into Wonderland because things have fallen apart, and she must be the one to set them right. Because Wonderland is Alice's home.
You are racked with guilt because you survived, and you dread the prospect of a life alone.
Gee, Caterpillar, way to spell it out there. In between fat hookah rips, he tells Alice that she must kill the Queen of Hearts to restore Wonderland. So he sends Alice off to this fiery, brimstony level where, for some reason, a bunch of demons and lava monsters are walking around. So is this, like, hell? Oh look, it's Humpty Dumpty. Mr. Dumpty, I didn't know you were such a sinner. Okay, this is important. Here, Alice finds the first piece of the Jabberwock Eye Staff, an incredibly OP weapon that will help her destroy the Jabberwock and reach the Queen of Hearts. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jabberwocky was a poem that Alice read in Through the Looking Glass, about some guy who went to fight a dragon called the Jabberwock and he killed it and everyone threw a rager. And that's literally it. But here, the Jabberwock is like the Queen's guard, and Alice needs to kill him if she's going to get to the Queen. This whole plot of Alice defeating the Jabberwock specifically was also like the main conflict of Tim Burton's Alice movie, so go figure. And in this adaptation, the prophecy is given to us by an incredibly goofy-sounding oracle.
To destroy the palace filled with malice is the daring work of noble Alice. An endgame with the Red Queen is possible only after you crush her sentinel, the vile, fiercelicious, and vengeful Jabberwock. Without the staff that bears his name, destroying him is the hopeless work of a wasted life.
No end couplet. Okay, well fuck you too then.
And you guys are not ready for what comes next.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is a pawn. Your ambassador to the best part of the game. Oh. Oh! Now this is the Pale Realm, aka a giant chessboard. Alice is kind of an honorary white piece, and since she's on White's side, she finally gets some help in fighting enemies. And there's a couple cute little puzzles where Alice has to, inexplicably, become a chess piece and move as such to avoid obstacles and progress. Like when she's a bishop, she can only move in diagonals, and when she's a knight, she can only move in L's. It's cute. But the really standout thing about this area is this music. Ugh! So the deal here is the White Queen is being kidnapped, and the king tells you to go and rescue her. And he offers you no help other than a single pawn.
Help us, please. The Red Queen's forces are strong and show no mercy. Our own queen is in terrible danger.
Okay, hold on. We need to address something. Is the Red Queen supposed to be the same as the Queen of Hearts? Because again, that's how it was in the Tim Burton movie, which was a bit strange. And it seems to be the case here, too, because this isn't the only time we hear this villainous entity being referred to as the Red Queen. But in the novels, the Queen of Hearts and the Red Queen are very much two different people. You had the Queen of Hearts in the card-themed book, and you had the Red Queen in the chess-themed book. And the Red Queen was, like, not even a villain? So that's odd. We're getting our games a little mixed up here. But anyway, you go over to Red's side of things, which is really just the Pale Realm, but all bloody looking, and find the White Queen just in time to see her guillotined. And the next boss battle is with the Red King, and it's pretty unremarkable. And Alice goes to the very back of the board and transforms her white pawn into a new White Queen. Wait, has this happened before? How many wives has this bro had? Alice is about to accompany the queen back home when Big Green Hat Man bitch slaps her unconscious.
Are you guys ready for the most fire track of 2000?
So Alice has been abducted by the Hatter. Speaking of, is this supposed to be a portrait of him? Why is it so weirdly sexy? 'Cause, like, in reality, he's a big, crusty green man? I don't know, maybe he'll go back to being a Tumblr sexy man when Alice stops being catatonic in an asylum. Also, very interesting that the Hatter keeps a bunch of those insane children around. I'm sure it's for a completely benign and totally not disturbing fucked up reason. Yeah, this level is super cool and I love it. Probably because it's one of the more trippy ones. Like, it starts out as this hall of mirrors, and then you have to take a super weird floating tunnel into an asylum full of children. Oh, but this level has the nightmare spiders. Fuck the nightmare spiders. No, seriously, that's what they're called. They're like one of the most annoying enemies in the game, because if they hit you, it makes it impossible to see shit. Also, they have doll heads on their backs, which is interesting. For another video. So then, we make our way into the Hatter's factory proper. Again, definitely nothing horrible going on here. And apparently, these nasty versions of Tweedles, Dee, and Dumb are working for him, because they're our next boss fight. And killing them brings out the man himself.
Bad timing. Pity. Reliable help is so hard to find these days. Come in, my dear. You're just in time for tea.
I only take mine with friends.
Count me to be among them. Accurately, I mean honestly, that's the truth. Oh, I quite forgot. You and the truth are not on familiar terms.
And you would know?
Truth is always bitter to those who fear it.
I fear nothing.
False! You fear much. A return trip to the asylum, for example. The memories that drove you there. More years in, shall we say, supervised hospitalization.
Like all these crazy people in Alice's world, the Hatter speaks a bit of truth about Alice's dissociation from reality. And it seems his current relationship to her is ambiguous. He claims that her fears might be avoided before sending her into the lower levels of his factory, which is odd. And here we discover what exactly the Hatter is doing in his factory. Well, for one, he's using live insane children to make his automatons. How unethical. Perhaps this was his plan for Alice as well, seeing as she's nice and insane. Life can't hurt you with the fear of your memories and hospitalization if you're an automaton. And we also find that he's experimenting on his former friends, the Dormouse and March Hare, who have already had multiple limbs removed and replaced. Fortunately, they're not all that emotionally tuned into their situation either.
The Hatter will be here at 6, sharp as clockwork. Misses no opportunity to deny us our tea. Most cruel, I'm sure. And his medicine makes me tired.
Yeah, that's super disturbing. Hatter's been drugging them and torturing them. Not even to punish them, but just because he went crazy. You're next. What is this, a fucking Spirit Halloween? Hatter has also imprisoned Griffin, who tells you how to escape. So you disrupt Hatter's experiments and draw him out for another boss fight. This one is so goofy, though. Oh! And just to be extra, his head explodes. What is with this game and head? Oh yeah. So Griffin is freed, and he flies you to the Jabberwock, all never-ending story style. And the Jabberwock has some words for you.
You're habitually late, aren't you? Between your dim-witted daydreaming and your preening vanity, the hours just fly by. There's barely time for anything else.
That the best you can do? Pearl's second-rate insults, they don't hurt.
Your family was expecting you to come to them, weren't they? Perhaps they thought you might warn them of the danger, being close to the source as you were. But they waited in vain, didn't they? And died for their trouble.
We were all asleep. It was an accident.
Silly.
selfish, misbegotten, and unnatural child. You smelled the smoke, but you were in dreamland taking tea with your friends. You couldn't be bothered. Your room was protected and spared, while your family upstairs roasted in an inferno of incredible horror.
So later in this video I'm going to talk more about this, but I really like what they did with the Jabberwock here.
The Jabberwock is really like the part of Alice's inner monologue that just kind of shit talks her all day and keeps her inactive. He's a big bad for sure, but keep in mind he's not as dimensional or deep-seated as the big bad we'll be meeting later. Griffin distracts the Jabberwock and takes his eye out before they go and fight in the sky, and now the ice staff is complete. A bunch of platforming levels later, and we walk in on this jarringly anime fight scene between Griffin and the Jabberwock, in which the Jabberwock kills Griffin. What follows is an incredibly hard boss battle in which Alice finally defeats her Jabberwock. But of course, the work still isn't done. As she mourns Griffin, she wonders if she's even strong enough to take on the Queen and save Wonderland. But Alice's final objective is right in front of her. Just across this bridge of ribs, in fact. Yeah, this last area is super gnarly and fleshy, because you get it, it's the Queen of Hearts, get it? It is so wrong, and how could I have not seen it coming because it's perfect? It just really builds the anticipation of what the Queen is even going to be. And then, at the door to her throne room, we get this very heartfelt speech from the Cheshire Cat.
Bravery and I are not on intimate terms. My natural curiosity is tempered with caution. Thus I've lived long. But now, ignoring my instinct to flee or fib, I speak the truth without regard to consequence. Your courage deserves no less. You've suffered great pain, and you've caused some. You've endured deep grief and feelings of guilt, but you will be tested by a more wrenching anguish, Alice. There is worse to come. You and this Red Queen cannot both survive. You are two parts of the same...
Why? God damn it! He was so close to making it out!
Well, now we have to avenge our cat, I suppose. So it's finally time to fight the Queen of Hearts.
Who am I?
Off with her head.
So, the Queen is like a weird little faceless puppet floating in the air at the end of this long, fleshy appendage. And seemingly you can defeat her quite quickly. Before, that is, shit gets fucking wild.
I rule Wonderland alone. Your interference will not be tolerated. This realm is for grown-ups.
Raw, well-ordered, ruthless, careening on the jagged edge of reality. Self-pitying dreamers are not wanted here. They cannot survive here. You fear the truth. You live in shadows. Your pathetic attempts to reclaim your sanity have failed. Retreat to the sterile safety of your self-delusions, or risk inevitable annihilation. If you destroy me, you destroy yourself. Leave now, and some hollow part of you may survive. Stay, I will break you down. You will lose yourself forever!
Okay. Let's go ahead and unpack that.
So, the Queen of Hearts says that she rules Wonderland and that her realm is for grown-ups, possibly meaning that Alice is not grown up enough to complete this inner journey. Alice isn't strong enough, and so if she keeps trying to confront her trauma, she will destroy herself. If she stays and fights the Queen will break her down and Alice will lose herself. The Queen wants her to believe that the trauma is too scary, too severe for her to confront without basically losing her mind completely. And even if she does make it out to the other side, she won't be the same Alice. And that's scary enough. This is the Queen's last attempt to make Alice turn back and return to the comfort of her catatonia and self-blame. And then boss fight part 2 happens, which is just fucking insane. Like, dude, I don't even know what to call this. She's got like this weird beam that shoots out of her belly hole, and it's just gnarly. But it's still not nearly as difficult as the Jabberwock boss fight. Oh look! All her meat is raining from the sky. Well damn, let's see how Wonderland changes now that it's free of the Queen's tyranny. Wait, Griffin's alive again? Oh shit, Rabbit's alive again. Dude, the Cheshire Cat's alive again! I wonder what wisdom he will give us now that Alice has restored everything back to— Wait, what the fuck? That was it? Okay. Why does Alice look like that? She looks terrifying. She had her cat with her the whole time? Oh, and she gets to just check out of the asylum now? Last I heard, it was kind of hard to do that back in the 19th century, even if you did suddenly get better.
So one of the problems I had when I played this game for the first time was that we didn't really get to see anything of what was going on in the real world while Alice was in Wonderland. And yeah, like, her leaving the asylum was really abrupt and we didn't see what that looked like from the outside at all. Well, back in ye olden days, there were things called game manuals. No, I don't have a physical copy to flex. I read it as a PDF.
Yeah, the manual goes pretty hard. Because at the end of it, there's this 20-page string of Dracula-style diary entries from, get this, Alice's doctor at the asylum. And this gives us way more insight into what Alice was up to in the real world. For nearly 10 years, Alice really did just sit there catatonic. But then, she started silently drawing pictures of Wonderland. And she spoke for the first time after a nurse tried to replace the missing eye in her stuffed rabbit. She also attacked 2 staff members when they started messing with her rabbit. And after some outbursts of screaming and sobbing, one day Alice very calmly starts engaging her doctor in conversation and tells him all about Wonderland. And she starts to become more lucid, but should the staff say certain words like fire, Alice begins to retreat once more into Wonderland. But the doctor actually gets very invested in the Wonderland stories and starts to think that maybe she can use them to cure herself.
Of course, this is really more of a teaser for the game than anything, so it's not really going to reveal anything huge, but I thought it was cool to mention, especially now that we know everything that happened in Alice's mind. Now, we've been talking throughout this video about what this and that means, but now it's time to bring it all together. What greater story is Mr. McGee telling here?
I like how this is one of those stories that takes place all in someone's head, but that we know that from the beginning. Wonderland isn't so much Alice's day-to-day mind, but it is herself and her overall headspace. She went 10 whole years without visiting it, after all. But it's her home, and she's been neglecting it. There's an interesting quote from the Cheshire Cat in the original Alice novel that says one must be mad in order to visit Wonderland. Similarly, in this story, it is the very madness Alice experiences following the death of her family that forces her to introspect, to explore the wonderland of herself, and realize the ways in which she is destroying it. The ways in which she fails to keep the Red Queen in check, so to speak. Speaking of, what exactly is the Red Queen? And why does Alice ask her, "Who am I?" Well, the Queen is Alice, kind of. At least a part of her. I think if the Jabberwock is Alice's vicious self-blame, as we discussed earlier, then the Queen is the underlying denial. And that is why the Queen tells Alice to seek out comfort while destroying her from within. She is Alice's way of coping. The Jabberwock's words act as a sort of distraction from the real problem. And in this way, he is the guardian of the Queen and the guardian of Alice's denial. But the Queen isn't the denial that her parents are dead. Rather, she is the denial that such an event could have just happened for no reason. Deep down, it is better in Alice's mind if she is the one to blame. Because if things like that can just happen, then does Alice really have any control over her world? If things like that can just happen, then the world may be too terrible to face. Sadly, this is a mentality that a lot of childhood trauma survivors struggle with. And as to why Alice asks, "Who am I?" to the Queen, I think perhaps even at this point, the final battle, Alice is still looking to the Queen to affirm her identity, because her fractured state is her identity. And the Queen, of course, answers that should Alice destroy her, she would destroy herself. If she goes on in life without her family, really, she is no longer Alice. The Queen also murders the Cheshire Cat because she's the worst. I think that maybe this is another last resort on the Queen's part to keep Alice from saving herself. Because if there's anything that'll keep Alice from moving forward with her recovery, it's reliving and compounding her trauma while watching a friend die. And the fact that it's the Cheshire Cat dying just before we meet the Queen is very important. Do you remember really early in this video when I said that the Cheshire Cat may be like Alice's rational self? Well, we could say that the Queen is further disadvantaging Alice by eliminating that reasoning part of her. But when she's this deep in her psyche, reason may not necessarily save her. As Griffin dies, he tells Alice that true words and logic rarely defeat evil intent. Which the characterization of the Queen as evil is a bit strange. Herself accepts responsibility for Wonderland's corruption, but I get that the Queen is a symbolic villain, and tension has to be built, and that this is all beside the point. The thing is, our emotions are kind of meant to control us. They're there to help us survive. Which is why intense emotional issues are kind of logic resistant. In other words, you can't fix a mentally ill person by telling them to snap out of it. Does it make logical sense to snap out of it? Totally. But that's one logical conclusion against potential years of bad thinking habits. Them thoughts, man, they'll slow cook you. So, really the only thing that can get Alice the rest of the way is her will. Courage in the face of overwhelming emotion. Reason will set up the path, but will alone helps you walk it.
Yeah, I really like this game. I think it did very well with the Alice IP, converting this, like, child's fantasy world into a confusing, harrowing journey of the self. I still have some unanswered questions, though. Like the Hatter. What's up with him? And why did all of the dead characters just spontaneously regenerate? Well, hopefully, all of this and more will be answered in a future video. Bye-bye.